Hey, I have an idea. Why don't you take a look at a lesson I recently taught, and show us what you mean by some of those concepts you described?
Great idea, Mrs. McLellan. I'd be happy to take a look at your lesson. Look at these students talking about how Ms. McLellan has them construct their own knowledge. She doesn't spoon-feed them information, they construct it for themselves.
Love it.
Our teacher, Ms. McClellan, always wants us to know what we're doing. If we don't know an answer, she'll guide us to that answer without giving it to us, but she'll guide us to it.
I like the way our teacher teaches, and I like the way she gives us clues instead of answers to our problem or what we are researching. And Mrs. McClellan is really helpful in helping us to learn on our own, and so when we're alone and we want to find something out, we can be able to do it without getting so frustrated.
She doesn't just tell them we are going to study cricket anatomy, like most biology teachers would. She lets them decide they want to know more about how crickets work. The learning is student-initiated, not teacher-dictated.
And then after we'd looked at them, what they wanted to know. One of the things that arose was that they weren't sure about all the parts of crickets and how they functioned. So we did a study on cricket anatomy and physiology.
Ms. McLellan's students are in the formal operational stage, as you can see here, where they utilize abstract thinking to create hypotheses, a critical step in the scientific method.
So now the next step is to put it into a hypothesis. Okay? It's our basic if-then statement. And the if is an assumption, the then is the observation.
We put the crickets at the top of the bottle, and then we put the food at the other end, where it's light and it's dark. We want to see where the crickets will head to.
Yeah.
Okay, now...
We should instead of a dark environment would work better than light.
So our hypothesis would be, if crickets choose their food based on their environment, then they will choose food that is in a dark environment.
In this stage, students often show formal operational egocentrism, where they may not realize what is realistic, with limited time and resources. However, knowing this, Ms. McLellan reminds them of their limitations to keep them on track.
Thank you. All right. So remember your time frame. We've got the rest of today's class and then tomorrow's class. So try and get as many trials to collect data as you can.
They learn by assimilation, placing new knowledge in a framework of things that they already know.
Next step that's a little trickier. I want you to take your question and link it to the characteristics of living organisms. And we studied those in the very beginning of the year, so they should look familiar. Basic biological functions of living organisms.
And they also learn by accommodation, where they have to revise their schemes to make sense of what they learn. Like when this student has to revise her scheme for cricket movement to account for the fact that they do more than just jump.
Now, what else do they do around this movement? What else is observable?
I have no idea. All I've really seen them do is jump.
Jump, is that it?
Yeah.
Okay, you know what I want you to do? I want you to take just a couple minutes, all right, when we get done here, and I want you to go back over and make some more observations on the crickets and see some other measurable observations that you could make about ways that they move.
Okay.
All right? So, because we need an observable behavior in order to do this prediction around our hypothesis, right? That's the then part. Okay?
They even learn from their age mates, like in this clip, where students are having trouble with their experiment, but a classmate pulls them into disequilibrium, and then back into equilibrium again, knowing how to do their experiment in a better way.
Why don't you just make two separate ones, and you can like cut a hole in here and get like a paper towel roll and make a little tunnel to the next one and see which one they want to go in. They'll put black paper on this one and then leave the other one like clear.
So you're saying we have two jars and then we have like a tunnel between them?
Mm-hmm. And see which one the crickets want to go to instead of trying to divide it.
Josiah came over to see what we were doing, and we were having a rough time with it. Because at the beginning, we were trying to split a jar into two sides, dark and light, and it wasn't working very well. And he came over and he just suggested to us, why not just have two separate jars? Me and my partner, Irina, didn't think of much of that at first because we were thinking, how did the crickets get from one side to the other? And he suggested that we make a tunnel.
I say what you do is you trace this around here.
Yeah, and cut it here and do the same thing right there.
Ah, yeah, that's good.
When taught appropriately, children's natural tendencies to be active and interested learners emerges, and it's no longer the teacher telling them what to do, it's them doing it for themselves. Just like Huey and Christina here.
Christina and Huey were very much involved in their own work. And I think that's the shift that happened for them, that got them invested in doing the activity and learning the thinking skills, is that it went from my project that I was making them do to their own research that they wanted to find an answer to a question that they had asked.
And when teachers implement my brilliant theory, they'll discover students will surprise them with how much they learn and how brilliant they can be, just like our friend Ms. McClellan did.
I think the highlights of these experiences is that I never cease to be amazed at what they think of. To see them grow from just simple questioning into developing this whole process and coming to meaningful conclusions, that's always a highlight.
Thank you for the high praise, Dr. Piaget. It means a lot to me, as I've modeled many of my teaching methods on your work. With this lesson, my objective was for the students to learn to implement the scientific method to conduct self-generated experiments regarding crickets, and to evaluate their findings to ascertain the correctness of their initial hypotheses. To assess them, I had a rubric with points that could be scored on each step of the scientific method, and I assigned them points for each step as they went, so they could correct mistakes as they made them, and they didn't go too far down an incorrect path.